And thanks again for joining. My name is Chris Sisto. I am the D3M Product Manager, and I'm the one that's going to be running you guys through this monthly webinar where we're going to be focusing on quoting. I also have in the room with me Chris Mulcahy, who is our D3M account executive. I'm sure if he's done his job well, you've all talked to him by now.
Yeah. Hi guys. A lot of you have probably spoken to me at some point. I just wanted to quickly say how important your questions and feedback are. So please don't hesitate, like Chris just said, to write here in the chat now. Write any questions there, we'll answer them. And really, whenever you're using D3M, click that chat bubble, write us questions, give us feedback. It's valuable. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Chris. All right. So jumping in today, what we're going to do is just a quick overview of D3M, just kind of reminding everyone on the call, what it allows you to do, how it can help you. Very, very quick. And then we'll be talking about how to actually upload your quote parts into D3M, because today it's all about quoting. Today's webinar, we'll be talking about that briefly. That's an admin function, but we'll be going over it for 4 or 5 minutes. And then we're going to get into actually how to use the quote tool within D3M. So we'll start with smart quoting. I'll explain to you guys what I mean by that. That's a very generic term. And then we'll get into how to use icon bundles to speed up your design and quoting process, and how to quote cables and connections, which is also a new feature. Before, you were only able to quote devices and equipment. Now you're actually able to quote cables, cable lengths, connectors, things like that as well. We'll be talking about how to review your quote, how to check your margins, all sorts of different things like that. And then, of course, how to put together a quote or share a proposal with an end customer, whether you want to PDF it and send it to them, or you want to share a live view of that actual document that stays up to date in real time. I'll show you how to do both of those things. So should be about 30, 40 minutes, and we'll, of course, leave some time for questions as well. So just as a quick reminder, and I like to come back to this sort of every month, really, D3M is all about helping you guys through the network deployment from pre-sales all the way to proposal and delivery, installation, post-sale support, and back along that cycle when you're trying to upsell those customers. We really try to help you all the way along the way, and D3M becomes kind of that central hub where you have all that information that you can utilize to make sure you're keeping your customers happy and keeping them for years to come. So where can D3M actually help you with? These are kind of the 4 main components. For those of you that are very familiar with D3M, you'll remember that we have topology and rack diagrams, and we have a quote tool, which we'll focus on today, the project inventory, which is where all of your equipment and connections lie, as well as live documents and how you share with customers. So you can kind of see here from this graph, we really, with these 4 different components, we really touch the entire life cycle of that network deployment. And today, again, we're going to be focusing on the quote tool, which is going to be all about the pre-sales phase, delivering that proposal, and then hopefully creating an upsell in the future as well. So just kind of focusing on those elements today. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to actually upload your quote parts into D3M. For those of you that are not admins on the call, this may be a little boring for you, but hey, maybe you can help your admin do it. It's pretty straightforward, but I just want to run people through it so that you have a record if you're looking to do this. So the first step is going to be trying to figure out, well, what kind of parts do you want to bring into D3M? What things do you want to be quoting in D3M? And really, this could come from any sources. It can be coming from your accounting software, where you can actually export usually a CSV or an Excel format of your documents, of your parts list. It could be coming from distributors' price sheets or manufacturer price sheets. For example, like I know that Motorola Online offers the ability to download all that pricing, and we'll be going over that example today. But the idea being that you're going to take all these different, places where you might have pricing, and then basically put them together so that they fit this D3M template. And our template is very, very straightforward. That you can see a screenshot of it here. It's really a matter of getting, a part number, a name, a description, a price, and a cost, and really getting all that information sorted so it's in there, and then you can upload it into D3M. So the first thing I'll do is kind of show you an example that's a common one we hear because we work with a lot of Motorola dealers is how do I actually work with the Motorola export that I get? So I'll just take 2 minutes to do that. I do apologize if you're not a Motorola dealer, but I'm just going to quickly show this. So over here, I basically have the Motorola price list. Now keep in mind that the prices that are going to pop up have been completely randomized. I don't want to take anything away from sharing any information that I shouldn't. So just don't be surprised if anything looks weird there. Just give me 1 second here. All right. So I'm going to open up that pricing sheet. And what you're going to see here is something that's a little overwhelming. It really exports as a text file. Typically, when you're exporting out of an accounting software, it'll be a lot more readable, we'll say. It'll often have columns and look like an Excel file, but what you might get is something like a text file like this. So I just want to quickly show you how easy it is to convert. It's just a matter of knowing the steps. the first thing I'm going to do is just right-click and say that I want to open this with Microsoft Excel. This might look slightly different if you use Windows operating system, but the concept is the same. I'll go ahead and open up that pricing sheet. And what I'm going to see here is a list of all that information, but in one column right now. So what I actually want to do is I want to click on the data tab here. And again, this might be in a different spot depending on which software you use, or sorry, which version of Excel you have. But what we want to do is select the text to column. Oh, sorry, I have my screen sharing interface in the way here. That's why you guys might wonder why I'm moving my mouse around. But over here, so under the data tab, I'm going to go on text to column. And what I want to do here is say, okay, well, I understand that the thing that's delimiting each column here is this, it's called a pipe. Often it'll be a comma. In this case, it's a pipe. So I'll say, okay, well, I want to go ahead and take this and I want to hit next. And I'm going to say that what I have here is separating these columns. I can see it visually as this little pipe. So I'm just going to type that that's my delimiter. Again, often it'll be a comma instead. And that's just showing me, oh, great, like these are the columns that I want to see. Perfect. I hit finish. And boom, from there, it's created all the different columns. And that's something a lot more readable. Typically, this is what your export will look like. But in Motorola's case, it comes out a little different. So that's why I just wanted to show you guys how easy it can be to do that. Now, if you remember the template I showed earlier, this is the D3M template that you'll download, and I'll show you how to do that in the app in just a minute. But basically, we want a part name, a description, a price, and a cost. So all we're going to do is take this Motorola file, and we're going to just modify these. So we know that this is the part number. We don't care about the group ID or any of this information, so I'll just delete these columns. In this case, we don't have a name and a description, so we're just going to actually call this the name. Whoops, name, there we go. And then this information I do not care about because we only have one currency. All this information I'll delete. And then I will just make sure that list price is really what we call price in D3M, and your price is what we call the cost. And that's it. You've basically done that. You would go ahead and save that, and then I'll show you how to upload in D3M. But it's as easy as that. What you can do if you want is you can select these columns and paste them in here, and you can do that from your various different sources like we talked about it, whether it's your accounting software, Motorola. You just want to get the right information in the right columns. And then once that's done, you can basically upload it into D3M. So again, I do apologize. I know I'm sharing something a little bit technical, but I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. So here I'm logged into D3M. And just to show you where you would actually upload these parts, you would basically go into the main menu here, click on Organization Settings. I do apologize, I opened a project by mistake there. But on the main menu here, as long as you're an admin, you're going to see this Organization Settings here menu item. And basically what we're going to do is go to the Quote tab from here. So just take a second to load here. There we go. I'm going to click on Quote. And what I'm seeing here is all my settings relating to quoting. So I can do things like set my currency, set a prefix, and the next quote number I want to start on. I can decide whether or not I'm hiding part numbers on a quote, allow people to change prices in custom parts. So this is whether or not you want the sales reps in your organization to have the capability of overriding prices or creating their own parts. So you can turn all that on and off. They're very straightforward. But really what we're talking about here is how to upload your parts again. So that file that we prepared, that we would have prepared for Motorola, we would basically click here to say, I want to go ahead and upload it. And then from there, you could select the right file and upload it. I'm not going to do it in this case solely because we use this demo account and I don't want all the Motorola parts in here. But it would be as easy as uploading that, and it will automatically create all of your different parts in here. It says here that you can click here to download a valid CSV template. So that template that I was showing you over here, that's where I got that template. I just clicked here, I downloaded it to my computer, and that's where I transferred all the information, and then you re-upload it into here. So pretty straightforward. I wanted to give everyone an overview on how to do that, but keep in mind that if you're having any trouble or want any assistance, we're always there to help, whether you dial into our phone number and ask for some help, which you can find on our website, or you can always click on this little button down here and ask for any questions or help that you might have. So you can start a new conversation, you can search our knowledge base, and we have an article about how to actually upload your quote parts. So for example, if I search quote parts, you'll see that very quickly they'll find an article. There we go, Intro to Quotes and Estimates, so it'll be through there. So yeah, all the information is there to help you. Make sure you use it. The other thing we're able to do is we're also able to create parts manually. So right now I showed you how to kind of upload some parts, but let's say that you're in D3M, you've uploaded your parts, but you just want to add one or two parts quickly. You can always do it from this interface as well. For example, if I go, D3M dash, my usual 5-digit number here, and I'll add, for example, we'll call this the Chris Mulcahy part, since he's in the room with me. Description in sales, unfortunately. And we'll say that he's worth $1, but he costs us 10 cents, so it's all good. So I just hit enter, and there you have it. I now have this new quote part. So really straightforward. You can easily add quote parts. You can modify prices in here. If you want to search for an existing part to update a price, you can go in and do that. And I will also mention that if you've uploaded prices in the past and you want to maybe upload a new updated price list because, you know, Motorola changed their pricing or Hytera has or so on and so forth, anytime you re-upload a part with the same part number and you update any information, D3M will know and will automatically update that part. So just keep that in mind as well. And if you've done all the work to kind of put all this in a format that makes sense, you can always re-export your part list, modify it from there, and re-import it as well. So you have that functionality up here. So that's it. I promise I'm not going to talk anymore about uploading quote parts. It's fairly technical, like I said, but all that information is here, and we're more than happy to help. So now let's move on to the more fun part, which is actually using the quote part, the quote tool, and kind of saving you guys a bunch of time moving forward. So here I'm back to the main projects page. Before I just jump into a project and show you quoting, I do want to show you just a new feature we have here. Pretty straightforward, but on the left-hand side here, we have this new sort of announcements panel, where we're going to be showcasing a lot of the new features, new icons we might have created, recent case studies from our blog, all sorts of information that we feel is useful to you. So at any point, you know, you can go ahead and check out these different articles. You know, for example, we just released smart quoting as we're talking about today, or you can go read one of our case studies. And when we're announcing new monthly webinars, they're going to show up here, as well as the recordings. We'll make sure they're available on this panel as well. So this is just kind of an info panel about all the information you need to know about D3M. So I'm going to jump into an existing project I have here. It's empty, but I set it up just for time's sake today. So I click on that project. And before I jump into quoting, for those of you that are new here, I'm just going to quickly overview the D3M project, just so everyone knows how everything works in D3M. So one of the big things with D3M that you have to always keep in mind is that everything always stays in sync in D3M. And that's one of the very important things about using D3M, is that it makes sure that your entire project and all the different components are always in sync, so that it saves you a bunch of time and saves a lot of mistakes and errors in the future. So what I mean by that is that if you look at this topology diagram, this rack diagram, the inventory, the quote, the documents, all of it will always stay in sync. So I'm going to go through them quickly one by one. So topology diagram is where we put together a network architecture, which is where we're going to focus on today, as well as the quote tab. The rack diagram is where I can actually do things like add racks, obviously, and design an actual network. So you'd be able to do that as well. If you have any questions about the rack diagram, if you check out our last month, I believe, we focused on rack diagrams last month or the month before, but that's on our recordings page where you can check that out if you have any questions there. Seem to be hearing someone, so I'm just going to, if I can ask everyone to stay muted, I'd appreciate it. Perfect. Thank you very much. So we have the rack section. Then what we have here is our inventory, where every single item that I add will be added. For example, I've added 2 racks to this project. It's added into my project inventory. We have the quote tab that we'll focus on today. And then the documents, which is where we're going to create documents to share with customers, which I'll show you in just a bit. The other thing we have is the ability to store files. This is basically a file repository that you can store any information you want at any point. So let's go ahead and jump in here. What I'm going to do is just start creating a network and show you guys how the smart quoting feature works. So let's say, for example, that I want to grab a Kenwood repeater. So you know, I have quite a few icons set up here. So I'll just try to get to my Kenwood, for example, over here. So I'll take, for example, this NXR 810, right? This next edge repeater. So I've dragged that out. I will drag out, for example, I'll go get a duplexer over here. And I'm just starting to lay things out, just nice and easy, drag and drop, and a dipole antenna, for example. And then I'll go get a switch just to connect this back over to the network. So let's say that I'd actually just want to search in this case. So I'll click over here and search switch. There we have it. I will drag that out. And now the next thing I want to do is actually connect these devices. Before I start quoting them, I just want to make all my connections, because those are cables that I'm also going to want to be able to quote as well. So I'm going to switch over here to what we call our ports view. And what the ports view allows me to view is the different things I can connect to. So in this case, if I take this switch and I click and drag, it'll automatically connect it to the next edge repeater here, TX to TX, RX to RX, antenna to antenna. So really quickly, I can put all those connections together. That looks good. We won't get into more detail. That's pretty straightforward in this case. So what I want to do now is I actually want to create a quote, right? From this very simple network, I want to generate a quote and see what it looks like. So what we're going to do here is we're going to turn on the quote view tab here. So I'm going to click on the quote button. And what you'll notice is that there's 2 of my items that have already been pre-quoted. And the reason for that is because since we've implemented the smart quoting feature a few weeks ago, D3M has been actually learning my patterns, and I tend to, every time I drag out this duplexer, I tend to attach this D3M 75446 duplexer part to it. So it's automatically learned how to do that. This dipole antenna over here is using this part R dash dipole antenna for $1,500 bucks. It's learned that that's what I like to associate with that particular icon. And you notice that over here, these icons don't have that. And by the way, the whole idea behind this quote view is to see which parts have been included in your quote so far and which have not, right? So ideally what I want to do is either see everything in green, or at least everything that I want to actually sell to the customer has to show up in green here. So let me go ahead and do that for this repeater. So I'll double click on this repeater, and we have all the usual, the name, the quantity, all the usual properties that you would normally see. But if I scroll down here, I'm going to see my actual quote parts. And this is where I want to attach a quote. So I'll search, we just have very generic parts here because it's a demo account. But if I search for repeater here, there we go. So it's just found repeater. I want to use this D3M-56 repeater part, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And you can see that I've now associated it with that, and we're good to go. I'm going to do the same thing on the switch here. I'll just search switch. I hope we do have a switch on the center. We should. So what you see here is that what it's actually doing is it's searching the parts that we actually uploaded earlier. So here we have it. I'll take this, for example, this D3M switch for $450 bucks. That looks good. And there we have it. And now, because I've done that, D3M is starting to learn, like, oh, you like to actually associate this, this repeater with this part. So eventually, like after a couple instances, it will start automatically placing that. Now you can always override it. Like for example, with this dipole antenna, let's say that that's not the actual right part. It's the one I use the most, so great. But I want to actually remove that. You can always delete it and say instead I actually want this dipole antenna, and I want to change it to that. Perfect, that looks great. So now I've gotten all my devices quoted, but the next thing I actually want to do is I want to quote my actual connection, so the cables between my devices. So I'll double click on the cable, same thing, and it's a very similar process. So here I want to go ahead and say, this is a Cat6 cable, so I'll search Cat6, that looks good. Notice here that now we're talking about a price per foot. This isn't a pre-built, I want to actually charge per foot. I happen to know that I need 120 feet of Cat6 cable, so I add a quantity of 120, and there we have it. We know that it's done that, so we're good to go. Over here on this coax cable, I want to do the same thing. We'll say that I add a quote part here, and I'll look for coax. There we go, the D3M coax cable, and I will add, for example, 50 feet of that. And then the other thing I want to do here is I actually want to add the connectors, because those in this case are expensive. We didn't care about the Ethernet ones, but here I actually want to charge for that. So I'm actually going to look up the connectors. So D3M coax. Perfect. So it found this male coax connector. I'm going to add two, one for each end, because they're the same ones. That looks great. And again, I'm just going to repeat this process on all the different devices until I've gotten all of them. So pretty straightforward there. I mean, you see how quickly you can put this together. And again, the more you use this, the more D3M is going to start learning about your patterns, your behaviors, and really just skipping a lot of this process. So it becomes pretty quick. And really, what I think is very important here is that it's all about making sure you don't make mistakes. You can't forget anything. You're visually seeing that all these different things are being quoted. Notice how these are becoming green, and it's showing you have two parts on each one of them. So you can actually tell there's two parts being quoted. So I didn't forget my connectors, and I didn't forget my actual price per foot. So that looks good. Same idea here. I'll just do it quickly. There we go. We'll say that there's 100 feet between that and the antenna. That's probably low. We'll say 200 feet. And then coax, and we'll add two there. So there we have it. So we've actually quoted everything. This looks great. Everything is green the way I want it to. Fantastic. And now what we'll do is we'll actually go check out our quote, see what it looks like. So when I click on the quote tab here, what I'm going to see is that it's basically taking all those different parts and it's laid them out on a quote for me. So on the left-hand side here, we have our project quotes where all the different products are laid out. And on the right-hand side, we have our margin analysis. And this is where if you've uploaded a cost, D3M will automatically tell you the margin for each line item, as well as an overall margin for your products, for your services, and your overall deal. So I'll get back to that in just a sec, but let's kind of fix this a little bit. This looks like a lot of information at once. I want to clean it up a bit for the customer. So let's say, for example, that I want, my devices in one, or we'll call it equipment. My equipment in one section, radio equipment, we'll call it. Why not? Changing my mind. There we go, radio equipment. And what I'll do is I'll add a new section over here. So down here, I can add a new section. And I'm just going to say, for example, cabling and antennas. You wouldn't have to do it this way, but it's just to show you that you can organize it any way you want. So cabling and antennas, perfect. I will add that here. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to drag down all of my cabling and antenna parts down here. Perfect. Dipole antenna, there we go. So we're looking pretty good. We have all of our cabling and antennas over here. We know that that totals up to 2,200 and it's 4,200 over here. We don't have any portables right now on our network, but just to kind of show you, anything you add will automatically update here. Right now we only have one repeater, one portable. If I were to go back, or no portables, if I were to go back here and, for example, just duplicate this, right? Because I want to add a second repeater or duplicate the whole thing, what you'll notice is when I go back to my quote, of course that's updated, and now we have 2 repeaters. So it will always stay in sync between the two of them. So I'll just delete this just to keep things clean. And I'll go ahead and add a couple portables here just so that we have a system that makes sense. So let's take, for example, this NX5300 portable. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that there's a quantity of 25 radios. And I'm just going to add the one part because I know there's 25 radios with one part on them. And that part in this case will just be a simple portables. Of course, you'd want to find the exact part. But in this case, I'll just add portables. So 1, but it knows to go times 25 because there's 25 devices. There is not yet because I forgot to hit set. There we go. Now we know that there's 25 devices. I'll just make that look a little bit better over here. There we go. And now I go back to my quote, and what we'll see is that there are now 25 portables added to that. So you guys can see how how easy it is to put this together. Again, the more you use it, the quicker you'll become at it. And what's really nice again is if anything changes in your topology, it'll automatically update here. You can always review it, but it's really nice in that sense. Just to kind of show you here, let's say that there is a promo going on with Kenwood right now, and for the month of what month are we in today? For the month of August, let's say that there's a $100 discount on this portable radio for all 25 radios. You can easily click on the discount button here and say I want to add a per item discount of $100 for 25 radios. There we have it. And I don't know if you noticed that. I'll undo it and redo it, but just to show you here, the margin is at 30%. If I undo it, we're back to the 40% and back to the 30%. So it's really always showing you what your margins are at. For example, let's say your dealership wants you to stay above 40% on the overall deal. Right now, we know we've given too good of a deal, or we need to remove a discount or play with pricing, whatever it might be. So we have our radio equipment, we have our cabling and antennas. I've shown you how all that works. You can also add a manual line item. So for example, for services, obviously that's not going to sync with your topology diagram. You're not going to start adding man hours and things like that. So what we'll do is we're actually just going to manually add a line item here, and we're going to start searching. So once I click on that, what I can do is search the parts database the same way I did earlier. So let's search, for example, for install support. So I'll search install. There we go. System configuration and install support. We charge $180 an hour. Based on my estimate, this will take 12 hours. So I'll hit enter, and there we have it. We'll add, for example, some support as well. So same idea, I just search, there we go. I want to add the, for example, 1-year bronze support, and this is $3,000, and I'll add a quantity of 1. And there you have it. So we can see, we've added those 2 parts. Again, it's showing me the margins on each different component of my system. And down here, I'm seeing the overall margin. Oof, that's great. It's above the 40% I need to be. Do I want to give an additional discount or not? I can give a discount on the entire thing, either a monetary one or a percentage-based one. For example, here, let's do a 5% discount because it's a repeat customer. We can add shipping and handling costs as well as taxes. So in this case, in Ontario here, it's 13% tax. Perfect. So my grand total in this case is $36,000. So that's basically it. That's the idea. We've put together a very simple quote, but just to show you how powerful this is and how quickly, how professional you can get at this, how much of a power user you can become. What I'm going to show you is what we could do as well is save this as an icon bundle. Let's say that this is something I do all the time, is I always, sell this 1 repeater network or sometimes 2, but I just want to save this as a bundle. I right click and say save bundle to my library. And I can call this, for example, my Kenwood 1 repeater with pricing. It's a very long name, but you guys get the idea. So I've gone ahead and saved that. And now what you'll see is that in my library, I now have this Kenwood 1 repeater with pricing. And in any project moving forward, I can just drag that out. And what you'll see here is because we've done that, everything will be duplicated. And that's the idea moving forward. So, I've prepared a bundle here just to kind of show you as you add those bundles. I hadn't quoted the quote parts here, but just to show you, if I go back to my quote, you'll see that all these items have been added to the quote. I have more repeaters. I have many more portables now. I would have to modify my discount. The more duplexers, all that's being updated based off my diagram. So I'm going to delete them just for now to keep things simple so we can sort of follow, but everything stays in sync that way. So really powerful in that sense. All right, so there we have it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I've shown you how to review the quote. And the next thing we're probably going to want to do is we want to actually export this, right? We've put together this quote. We want to either bring it into another accounting system to place the order, or we want to prepare a proposal for the customer. Those are kind of the two different things I could see us wanting to do. So let's start with going to the quote here. And now that you have this quote, what you can actually do if you want to import into another system is just click on Export CSV. And what that'll do is it'll download a Excel file of your quote and all your different part numbers. So this is essentially, I mean, a bill of materials where you would see, for each the category. So what section you put it in, the part number, the name, as well as the quantity. So for example, we know we have 120 foot of Cat6 cables to order, 290 feet of coax cable, and so on and so forth. So this is really essentially a bill of materials. You can remove columns if they're not interesting to you and you just want the actual information about the quantity and the total price. So really straightforward. You can get all that information out and back into another system if you need to. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Are there any questions that have come in so far, Chris? Just taking a quick pause here.
So far, I don't see any.
Okay, you guys are a quiet group, so I'm either being super clear or really confusing, but we'll hope it's the latter, or the former, not the latter. All right, so I mean, we put this together. Now what we actually want to do is put together a nice document for the end customer. So when I click on the Documents tab here, obviously I've just started this project. I don't have any new documents. So I'm going to click on Create a New Document. And what I can do here is select from one of the existing templates that my company might have. Right now, we could start from a blank or we could use a template. We're going to be actually releasing very soon some new templates that we're going to share with you guys to help you out. But keep in mind that as long as you're an admin, you'll see this Manage Document Template button, or you can go into the organization settings like we did earlier, and you can create the own templates you want for your company. In this case, let's start with a simple quote, then we'll do a full-on sales proposal. We'll start with a simple quote, and we'll say that this is, for example, a budgetary quote, and I'll hit create. So what this will do is it'll take my company's template and automatically put in all the specific data for this project. So we can see here that, it's a system quote by Teldo. It automatically added this text block. I can always go in and modify it if I want. This is a test. I can add whatever information I want. If I wanted to, it automatically put in the quote here. Notice that it's not actually showing us the part numbers. If you remember earlier in the organization settings, this is where you can decide whether or not your part numbers will show up on this quote. In this case, right now in the organization settings, I have it set to not show up, hide part numbers, but if you turn that off, they would show up. I know a lot of dealers like to hide those part numbers because they don't want people going out and price shopping. So that's really up to you. It would have shown if I had that turned on. So here we have it. We have our quote. It's showing you where your page break will be, your nice total, all that kind of information. Taxes, shipping are extra. Standard purchasing term, 30-day net FOB. And then here's our proposal acceptance, because of course we want them to sign off and give us the PO. So you could have that as your second page, however you want it. But keep in mind that any changes you make in your actual topology or in your quote will automatically reflect in this document. So keeping that in mind, what you can do is you can actually export this. You could then download this as a PDF and email it to your customer. But if you do that, as soon as you download it, it's no longer linked to the rest of your project. What you can actually do is you can send them this, for example, this link, and send it to them in an email and say, for example, hey, I've gone ahead and prepared your quote. You can access it here. And then when they go ahead and click on that link, what they're going to see is exactly what we're seeing here, which is this live document that will be up to date. Every time they load it, they're going to see the most up-to-date version. It's a non-editable one where they can actually go in and see this. They could print it if they want, sign it off, and email it back to you if they want, scan it and email it back to you. But yeah, really, really straightforward. And again, if we make a change here and reload it, it will update automatically for that end customer. So let me get back to where I was here. I have too many things open. Apologize. So that's about like sharing through a share link like that. Let me go back and just to show you how powerful this this system builder can be. We just have a simple quote here, but let's create a much more complex sales proposal. So I'm going to go click on Create Document, and I'm going to take the sales proposal template that Teldo uses here. I'll call it Sales Proposal, hit Create. And what you're going to see here again is it's going to take my company template and automatically place all the relevant information in the relevant spot. So it made a cover page for us with our company logo, our address, the XYZ manufacturing code, the name of the customer, all that kind of information. If I change it at any point, it will update everywhere in the document. Page 2 is our proprietary statement, trademark notice, all that kind of stuff. Page 3 is the letter to the customer, and if I click into it here, what you'll see is that it's using what we call our placeholder tags, where the project customer everywhere is being replaced here. So if I click out, you're going to see that it says Dear XYZ Manufacturing Co., but let's say I just rename this, for example, to, I'm just going to say Crisco. Hit save. What you'll see is that, again, everywhere in the project, it's now saying Crisco, 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 Crisco. So really, really straightforward in that sense, kind of showing you all that information, how it updates everywhere in the project automatically. A bit about our company, our mission, our value, why work with us, some of our customers. You can even see here we have like an animated GIF. So if I do live share that with my customer, they're actually going to see that rolling GIF. Any sort of animation you want to add, you can add. The project proposal, it automatically put in the topology diagram for me, the rack diagram, which we didn't complete today, but had we completed it, it would have shown up here. Well, it would have shown up better than these blank racks. If we want, we can add an inventory list. So we can add all the inventory, a listing of all of it. And we can also just decide to omit that completely and delete the page. And then the next spot is pricing. In this case, actually, I'm going to modify it to number 4 because I just deleted number 4. There we have it. Here's your pricing. And here's where you can accept a proposal. So really powerful tool that, in just a few minutes, we can put together a really, really good looking proposal. And again, you can export it and share it with the customer. So, I mean, that's really what we wanted to cover today. I like to keep things short and sweet if I can.